today, very briefly, I'm just going to be talking about GCSE English. And I say very briefly because GCSE English is broad. And there are several exam boards, just like GCSE Science, AQA, EdExcel, OCR, WOJEC, and the rest of them. There are lots of them. And if I were to go in depth into all of the, into GCSE English, we're going to spend weeks, right? So that I wouldn't give you some sort of information overload. And I have just made it very short. And so that you can now, with what I'm going to share today, you can now go on and do your own research. So because I'm going to be pointing out things that you're supposed to be able to research, things that you're supposed to do, or what you should actually be looking out for, right? When you have a student who is come to you for GCSE preparation. So understanding GCSE English, of course, we've said that time and time again. The first thing you need to know about any GCSE preparation is what exam board is the child writing under, right? What exam board is the school writing under? You find that out from the parents, you find that out from the child. It should be the first thing. As a matter of fact, if you can find that out before the first class you have, perfect. So that when you come into class, you show up prepared. Okay? So now there are two sides of GCSE English. If you are preparing a child for GCSE English, you should know that you're going to, yes, the English language, and then there's English literature. Right? Now, these are some of the things that English language is focused on. Reading and understanding, or what we call comprehension. Analysis, the ability to analyze a text, right? Analyze what the writer is talking about, why the writer has used certain expressions to communicate certain feelings or paint certain pictures. And under analysis, you see things like you would have to understand the use of language and structure. And by language and structure, I mean things like figurative devices, the use of different sentence types, varying sentence types and structures, and that's under analysis. Then under English language, this is broadly because certain boards will focus on certain skills. Not all boards, most of them have different skills they focus on, right? But then towards the end, I'm going to tell you one very important thing that your student should be able to know. But let's just move on. So comparison under English language, your child or the student you're teaching should be able to compare two texts. And by comparison, what is similar between the texts? What is different between the texts? Now, I must say this, right? I have to say this. If you are going to excel very well in GCSE English teaching, you need a lot of resources. And one of them at the top of the list is IXL, right? Because IXL goes, you see, this analysis, comparison, they do it very well. They have a lot of questions that help students compare, even from year 7, right? Even from year 7. So IXL is a good place to start. Then evaluation, evaluate a writer's writing technique, creative writing, transactional writing, technical accuracy. This involves spelling, punctuation, sentence types, and sentence construction. Okay, and then spoken language. Now, for English literature, these are some of the things that, some of the things that you're going to be seeing questions on. Shakespeare or any other 19th century literature. And you see modern text excerpts, you see poetry and unseen poetry. Okay, so these are the different exam boards, right? And these are some of the things they focus on. AQA focuses on reading, writing. Basically, they are almost the same thing, right? They almost have the same format. They almost have the same format. So I will not just spend so much time here. All right, then the core skills. These are some of the core skills that you need to evaluate your students on and make sure that they actually understand. As a rule of thumb, what you could do is maybe in your first class, let's say you have your first class, especially if you are preparing a child in year 11, right? This child's already in year 11 and you're preparing them for GCSE. You want to make sure that, they're able to understand or they're able to hit these objectives. Now, Your child should be able to read and then understand explicit and implicit information. That's information that is clearly stated and the one that has been inferred, right? So this is one of the first things that you should test. So if you are generating a test, right, let's say a diagnostic test for your child, or for the child that you're taking in, you're preparing for GCSE, you should have this as one of the objectives that your test is going to, test. Then analyze, that's the next skill. Your child should be able to explore the language and structure in an excerpt, right? So they should be able to know, what language device was used here, what structure device was used here, what structural device was used here. And it's not just to identify, right? It's one thing to identify that, the writer used a metaphor here. It's another thing to say, the writer used a metaphor here to communicate this, right? And please pay attention, note this. When they are analyzing, there are several ways to analyze, right? I'm going to talk more about it in the coming slides, but let me just point it out here. There's the peel structure, because of course they're going to be analyzing in paragraphs. Peel structure is a way to write paragraphs. Maybe towards the end, at the end of the class, I'm going to send a YouTube video explaining how to use the peel structure to answer questions, right? So when it comes to analysis or exploring language and structure, it's important that your students are able to analyze an excerpt using peel structure, right? So what is peel structure? Peel means point, evidence, explanation, link. So a text has been given to them, an excerpt from a text, and then they're like, how does the writer use language to show, maybe to show fear, or to show power, or to show strength? So your students should be able to point out the different literary devices, metaphors, personification, similes, hyperbole, repetition, alliteration, and all of those things. Rhetorical questions, all those are structural devices, right? And language devices as well. They should be able to identify them in the texts. Also, the next skill is that they should be able to compare. You have one text. Usually, what they usually do when it comes to comparison is they usually give texts from different generations. So maybe one 19th century text and one 21st century text, and ask them to compare. So when it comes to comparing, the student should be able to understand context. Now, what is context? Context is like the background story, or the background, the backstory of the backstory that maybe inspired the writing of a novel. For those of us who are who love to read books, a book like 1984, the context of 1984 didn't just come of someone's independent inspiration. It was inspired by historical happenings at that time. Stalin and Hitler, their system of government, the totalitarian government, influenced the writing of the book 1984. So if your students have texts, of course they usually have texts. The text that they are going to be reading or studying for their exam, one of the things that you should be able to teach them is context. It will help them to be able to compare different texts written at different points in time. The truth is, like I said, it feels like I am speaking a lot on one particular thing, right? Or when I get to one skill, I talk a lot about it instead of just going through it. I'm doing that because I'm trying to get you to understand that, if you do not already know, to understand how it actually works. But the truth is, if I try to go in depth, it's going to be a lot, because each of these skills that I have listed here, right, have several other sub skills under them. And that's why I've recommended IXL, right? IXL takes each of these skills and then breaks them into sub skills, so that it's not overwhelming for you and it's not also overwhelming for your students. All right, so after comparing texts, your student should be able to evaluate. Now, please also note that your student may not need to know all of these skills, but majority would need to know all of them depending on the exam board and the specification. And that's why I would always say read the specification. If you do not have the time to read the specification, you can download it online and then put it on Notebook LLM. It's an AI tool that helps you summarize and pick out important points from whatever you put into it, right? You can put in a research paper, you can put anything you put into it, it summarizes it and gives you, the important points. So if you do not have the time to go through the specification, which I would recommend, you can use Notebook LLM. It will let you know what skills that you should be working on with your students. Okay, so writing is very important. It's one of the important. In fact, all the skills here, right, will test your writing. Because if you're going to be communicating your understanding of explicit or implicit information, you still have to write it. If you're going to be analyzing, a text for language and structure, you still have to write. If you're going to be comparing, you still have to write. If you're going to be evaluating, everything has writing in it. So one thing you should also note from this is that no class should go by without you engaging your students in writing. They must write. They absolutely must write. Okay? And then it's one thing to make good points. It's another thing to use the accurate spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So you have to make sure that your students, with every writing they've done, after checking that their ideas are coordinated, you also have to check their spelling, you have to check their punctuation, and you have to check that they use proper grammar, right? So at this point, I'm just going to pause a bit because I feel like I've been talking a lot. Are you following? Is there something that I have said that you would like to react to? Yes, Mr. Shine.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Laura. You made a point about the use of IXL in teaching GCSE English. My question would be, how can we practically see practically how IXL can be used to how resourceful, how can it be resourcefully used to teach a child for IGCSE English?
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's my question, but I wouldn't know if it might require you to want to, like I said, that's why I said use the word practically, because is it possible that you can go to the site and show us practically how the connection, how it can be resourceful in teaching IGCSE English? Because I love that point actually. Yeah, thank you.
You what?
I said I like that point. I like that point, and I just want to see how it can be done.
Okay, so maybe towards the end, I would show you how that is done, or how that could be done. But are you familiar with IXL?
Yes, definitely I am. But yes, I am. I use it for every other. I use it for these other classes apart from exam classes. So I want to see how it can be used to teach a child preparing for IGCSE, or even a child preparing for SATs or 11 plus and all of that. But IGCSE particularly, yeah.
Okay, so I do not know about IGCSE, but I know that IXL supports the UK curriculum, the US curriculum, and I think Australian curriculum, right? And the IXL that I have, okay, someone else's hand is raised. Miss Debbie, do you want to?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay. I would like to know, what are the common mistakes that students make that make them perform low, make them get a low score in English GCSE exam?
Okay, so the reason why I'm not going to answer right now is because I'm still answering Mr. Shine. I thought you wanted to contribute to what he originally asked. So let me just finish with Mr. Shine, and then I'll answer your question. All right, so Mr. Shine, the reason why I mentioned Please, I can see your hand. Okay, so just hold on. Let me finish with Mr. Shine, then I'll answer Miss Debbie, then I'll get to you, okay? Just keep your hand raised. The reason why I spoke about IXL is because there are lots of, excerpts, right? There are lots of excerpts. So for teachers who would be struggling to find excerpts to test their students on, you would find lots of them on IXL, right? And then they also help with comparing text. They actually have broken down the scales, right? Where you can compare different texts, what to look out for when comparing different texts. And they have various questions on it. So maybe towards the end of the class, I would open it up and then I would show you. Okay. So, Ms. Debbie, you asked the question. Although I haven't finished my presentation, but like I said, I just, paused to make the class a little bit more interactive. Yeah. So some common mistakes that students make that makes them either fail English or get low scores in English language is the fact that they do not understand what they are being asked. One, they don't understand what they are being asked. Secondly, they do not know how to put their ideas together. Right? It's one thing to understand the question, it's another thing to actually structurally put your ideas together into a paragraph that is.
I'm waiting for that, my friend, to accept my code. I'm listening to.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so first things first, they don't understand what they are being asked for. Okay, yes, I said that already. Secondly, they do not know how to put their ideas together into something that is cogent and fluent rather. Thirdly, it's either punctuation or grammar errors. Like one of the most encountered issues I've seen is poor grammar, poor punctuation, right? Because most times, yes, they are being taught a lot on how to, identify the different language and structural devices. They know how to compare and contrast, but they do not know how to actually write it in using proper grammar. They want to write like they talk, right? And it doesn't. That's not what the examiner is actually looking for. Another error that they usually make, this one is actually rare, but yes, some people make it, is that they write with a lot of, overwhelming words, but their writing has no structure. Their writing is not connected. There's no connection in the writing. The ideas are not connected. So the examiner doesn't exactly know what he or she is reading. Although that is very rare, but a few students do that. So I think these are some of the common things that students face. And one thing that I have noticed that has helped with tackling these problems is getting them to another thing, especially when it comes to reading and understanding. Most children or most people don't read to understand, right? They don't read to understand. They just read to read. Some don't even want to pay attention to finish to really understand, whatever text is placed before them. So I think that should be like the foremost thing. So that's why I said you have to test to make sure that your child actually reads and understands explicit and implicit information. That is information that has been clearly stated and that which hasn't been clearly stated. Right, that's they have to be able to make inference on certain things. Okay, so I think yes, I was going to say that one thing after making sure that your child is able to read and understand properly. One thing that usually helps is their ability to write proper paragraphs, and that's why I emphasized on the PEEL structure, the PEEL and paragraph writing structure. Once a child is able to write a good paragraph, they can write almost anything, because writing is in paragraphs. Write 450 words. Writing 450 words, 5 paragraphs, that's 450 words. So once a child is able to write proper paragraphs, they will be able to write almost every other thing. And pure paragraphs can be applied to both analyzing, comparing, evaluating, and even communicating effectively for different purposes and audiences. Meaning, maybe you're writing for your school magazine, you're writing about a particular, you're writing an article for your school magazine. If you're writing articles, you're basically trying to state your point of view. You still state your point, you still state evidence, you still explain, you still link. So once your child is able, usually I would even say, if you're prepping a student for GCSE, once you have gone on to find out that they understand language and structure devices, the next thing you should do is teaching them how to write pure paragraphs, right? In my opinion, though, that's my opinion. So I think that's that. I don't know, Ms. Debbie, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome, Ms. Debbie. Ms. Peace.
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So you put your hands up. So let's hear your question.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Pertaining to what Mr. Kind I've heard of ILS. I know the app is very, very good and is very efficient in teaching UK, US, and Canada, and other states. I know that. But the issue I'm having with ILS is the payment plan. That this thing is way too expensive. So that's what I'm trying to ask. Because you said ILS, yes, they are free. There are free ones you could use, free curriculum you could get, but the free ones are not as they are just limited. You just have to do the full subscription to get the whole full package of what ILX is offering. So that's my question now is, if you're going to be using ILX, how do we come about how do we use the free ones, the free resources is it enough to do anything?
Okay. Yes, so the truth is, you wouldn't get much from free resources, right? Think about it. If you dedicated your time to do something really great, right? You spent months or years trying to perfect something. You wouldn't just want to put it out for free. Except, the only people who do that is what's the name of these guys? I've forgotten their name, but they have a lot of videos, and if I remember, I'll just let you know, right? But for IXL, with the level of intentionality that they put into getting a standard platform, it's not going to be free. And that's why I think Mr. Shai made reference to something Ms. Blessing said. She said teachers can band together, right? To make teachers can band together and get that subscription, right? Let me see if I can get how much it is. You can band together. Like, I know that I've done several other subscriptions with other teachers. CGP Plus, we came together, paid the money. IXL, we came together, paid the money. Twinkle, we came together, paid the money. So as long as you're having students, right, who are at least paying, it's an investment that you're going to make. And the truth is that, yes, maybe you might be looking at it now and it might be costing a lot. But by the time you've used these resources for 1 or 2 students and, you've brought them from ground 0 to ground 5, right, you get a lot more recommendations. You'd make that money back. So don't think that online teaching or online learning should just be with free resources. You wouldn't really go far. I think that's it. Because in fact, with the free resources, you cannot even assign anything to your students. So I don't know, maybe Ms. Debbie could create that platform where we can come together and pay for IXL. I don't know. What do you think, Miss Debbie?
Important.
Of course, it's possible.
Yes, Mr. Shine.
Oh, yes. I just want to buttress on what you just said. Actually, I'm thinking if we can identify those necessary resources, those imperative ones, important ones, if we can, like you said, if we can have a platform like that, we identify those important resources that every teacher should have, especially teachers teaching exam classes like this, so that Ms. Debbie can help us regulate the pulling together of capital to get to subscribe to those sites. So if we can identify those sites, those apps, and we make a list of them, and from there we get to have something. Because it's very painful that there are a lot of sites we can actually work with that would actually help us coach home what we are teaching our students. But it's always the same facts that you just have to pay for those platforms, and you can't do it all alone because the money is always on the high side. So I'm suggesting that we have that platform, like you said, identify those resources. Maybe we begin to list them on the platform. Then we identify which teachers are interested in which resources, and then we can pull the capital together to purchase the subscription. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think Ms. Debbie will talk more on that after the training. Should handle that. And please know that it's part of your teaching experience. Buying resources, getting training, it's part of the teaching experience. It's not something that is new. Okay, so don't hesitate if an opportunity comes up and you see that you're able to afford it. Hop on it. It would really change your teaching game. Okay, so the rest of the slides is just to break down what you can expect from the different assessment objectives. Okay, I have one more question. Yes, Mercy.
Okay, so mine is not necessarily a question. Good evening, everyone. So okay. I just want to add to say that concerning many of these sites that are paid for, yes, they might have restrictions, and it can be demoralizing for a teacher that wants to make use of these sites to make their classes much more basically used to assess their students. The thing with ISL is, I've noticed, because I use it a lot, is you can still make use of it, just that you have a limited number of questions to answer per whatever topic you pick. Right, and I want to believe that, let's say you're not teaching more one particular topic or 1 year per day or per whatever time, you are teaching that particular student. So I feel like I'm speaking to Miss Peace, so that you don't feel, what's that word? You don't feel like, oh, I want to do this, but money is another barrier. You can still start with using it, just that you have to now be attentive, because there's a limit of questions you can answer per day. So let me give an example. I want to teach maybe a topic in, you still have the grace to answer about like 10 questions, I think 8 questions. So you can still copy it and, just tell your student or whoever you're teaching that, oh, we're just going to be answering 8 or 7 questions just before, the limit for the day is up. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so that you don't feel like you want to do something. Yeah, so that you don't feel like you want to do something, but then you are being held back because of money again. Right, so every day gives you a particular number of questions you can answer, and I believe you are not just using IXL, there are other ones. So I'm just saying this for as many people who feel, oh, this particular site is paid for. You still have a grace to use. There's so many sites, so many sites that there's a particular amount you have to pay to go pro, and more benefits. But the free what's it called? The free part of the site, you can still use it, but just that it has a limit. So I'm just saying to Ms. Fitz that you can still make use of it. You can still go to the site, copy the link of the particular task that you want to do. So what I do, I don't even bother signing in. I don't bother signing up. I'm just saying, if you want to use the free use it in free mode or use it without being paid for, don't bother signing in. Click on the website and then search for the class, the age and the class that you want to teach or the topic, and just copy it and share it. All you just need to do is let your learner know we're only going to be answering a number of questions today, and just before your limit, you pack up and you continue with other things. Because I believe you can't, even if you want to use any site, whatever site you want to use, you're not using it for the whole 1 hour of your class. You're just using it for maybe like a short window of maybe assessment or to check that the child has understood. Because I said it's more of an assessment question. So there are some videos here, but more of assessment questions. So you're not using it for the whole 1 hour. It's just like 15 minutes or 10 minutes in between your lesson that you are using that to assess what you've taught the learner. So I'm just putting it out here so that you don't feel discouraged that, oh, I want to start using this site now, I can't use it, money will have to delay, I have to. And because the truth is, especially for a tutor that is just starting out, you're not making so much to be spending so much on what's it called, subscription here and there. We just have to be wise about it. You're not making that much yet, at least until you have gathered enough students. Yes, we want to gather enough students, but you are not making it. I'm not speaking, okay, let me not speak for everyone, but I'm just saying for a new tutor that is just starting out, you don't want to use, you still have data tariff that you have to sort out, you still have electricity or whatever, however, so you don't want to start subscribing to so many things, and at the end of the day you're not getting anything back at the end of the month. So yes, you can start up with the free limited parts of this site. So when you are, as the month progresses, obviously you put your finances in order and then decide on which one of the sites you can prioritize to subscribe. You understand? So yes, sorry that I've spoken for too long. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Mercy. I can see a question in the comment section. I would like to read it.
Okay, so okay, sorry, I was speaking. I didn't even know I was muted. I saw the question.
Okay.
So, Miss Amanda, she said, what year will be ideal for students to start preparing for IGCSE? I heard you mention year 11. Now, I know I mentioned year 11, but this is what I said when I mentioned year 11. I was talking about preparing diagnostic tests, right? So you won't be preparing diagnostic tests for a learner in year 10, right? Because they don't really know much about, that's when the IGCSE or GCSE prep begins, right? From year 10, right? Although I feel that it should start from like year 7, because especially when it comes to writing and all of that, the discipline has to be built early, right? The discipline has to be built early. However, the best place to start is year 9, year 10, right? For GCSE, year 9, year 10. Then from year 11, at least the year 10 builds like the basic foundation for you for GCSE. So from there you should have, when the child is in year 11, you can make certain assumptions that the child should have known this, the child should have encountered this, and that's when you can now do a proper diagnostic test to see, okay, what gaps are there for you to fill. But IGCSE or GCSE prep, ideally, in my opinion, should start from year 7, but then year 10 is like when it actually starts. Is that
okay?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I also have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, you talked about the different aspects in English, right? And then you also talked about creative writing. I've seen situations where a learner is slow in thinking creatively and putting down their thoughts on paper, and that alone takes time, and once time is gone, sometimes the learner or the student is not able to even finish answering the exam questions. So I don't know, is there any tip you'd like to share with us for a student that thinks slowly, a student that struggles to put their thoughts down on paper? Do you think they should the best way to do creative writing is to first think about what you want to write before starting, or how can you help a student who struggles to write creatively under timed condition?
Okay, so truth is, students to struggle because, one, they have no ideas, right? And sadly, a lot of people do not read. A lot of kids do not read these days like they used to. So that's one way that's one reason why they struggle. And most times it can seem very impossible to actually help. But then there are creative writing frameworks that you can employ as a teacher. So a framework basically just shows them some sort of formula, right, on what to do and how to do it. Do you get? One of those, okay, so this doesn't apply to creative writing. This applies to more of persuasive writing and answering other questions, right? It's the pure paragraph. That would help with persuasive writing and other questions. But then for creative writing, there are creative writing frameworks that you can teach the child. So the child doesn't necessarily now have to, start thinking up, ideas in isolation. They already have like a framework that helps them generate those ideas in their mind and then put them down constructively. So here's what I'm going to do. Please, Miss Debbie, just add it to the list of things that I'm going to just share later, right? I'm going to share different creative writing frameworks that you can employ. If you have a student like that who finds it difficult to think up ideas, who says, "Oh, I don't have ideas, I don't know what to write," I'm going to share some basic creative writing frameworks that you can apply, you can use with your students, that would help them think up ideas and, at least pass and at least write decently. But the truth is, nothing beats being able to read and explore and being able to read, and nothing beats exposure when it comes to creative writing. The level of your exposure equates how well you're going to write, how creatively you're going to write. So while also teaching them creative writing frameworks, easy creative writing frameworks, you can as well, recommend or suggest books that they can read. Suggest to their parents also books that they can read to expand their horizon. But the truth is, if they are not willing to read, you can just give them the creative writing frameworks that I'm going to share later on. Oof. Okay, so okay. So I think that's basically that. So, like I said, there are several assessment objectives. The students, this is assessment objective 1. I'm just going to rush through this because I'm just going to rush through this, okay? So, but you can get the slides later, and then if you have any questions, you can put it up on the WhatsApp platform, and I'll answer the questions there. So, assessment objective 1, I've broken them. These are different assessment objectives though. I've just broken them into different groups, right? It's not like they follow this particular order, but I've just broken them into different groups so that you'll be able to understand what is needed. So in assessment objective 1, this is basically comprehension, reading, understanding. So your students would need to understand the information. They'll need to infer meaning. That means they need inferential skills. Inferential skills are taught from as early as year 1, year 2, right? So, but sometimes some students could miss it. So if you notice that, you should be able to help them patch that gap. They should be able to interpret the writer's idea. They should be able to select relevant evidence, right? Okay, the writer has communicated this. What exactly in the excerpt did the writer use to communicate what he communicated? Okay, then assessment objective 2. Basically, they are going to be analyzing texts. So they should understand language devices, structural devices, vocabulary, very important. Imagery, how is the writer using certain words to create image, either through sound, through sight, through smell, and all of that. They should understand how sentence construction contributes to, a writer passing certain information. They should understand narrative techniques. They should understand the writer's choices. So basically, in analysis, the key questions are usually, why has the writer chosen to do it this way? How has the writer chosen? Why did the writer use this to show this? Why did the writer use this to show that? It's simply that if you check a lot of past questions, you're going to be seeing questions that are framed in this way. Now, next is comparison. You're comparing two different texts. It could be texts from different eras, or text from the same era but written by different authors with different writing techniques. So that means your learner should be able to understand different writing techniques, different contexts, the historical context, political context, literary context behind whatever text that they are comparing, right? What ideas are similar? What are different? How do most times, right? They could, in these comparison questions, they could bring two different texts written from different eras that are communicating the same idea, right? So all your learner needs to know is what is different. Yeah, they're communicating the same idea, but how are they communicating it? So, and that's where context comes into play too. So, okay, next is evaluating. So here in evaluation, your learner should be able to make a judgment about a piece of text and then support their judgment, right, with evidence, explain it, and then if there are alternative interpretations of of what the writer has said, they can also consider that as well. The next thing is writing, of course. They should understand the purpose of the writing, because these things are usually checked. Okay, write an article for your school magazine, talking about let's say the use of technology, how the use of technology hampers learning in the learning environment. Truth is, for the writer to be able to write properly, they have to understand who they are writing to, the purpose of their writing, the form. So the purpose of their writing and their audience will now determine the form and structure and the tone of their writing. So they're writing to their school, they're writing in their school magazine. They can willy-nilly use slangs or colloquial terms that are familiar to the school, right? They're writing in a more formal setting. They're going to use a more formal tone. So these are things you should be able to communicate to your learner. Okay. Also, aside that, this technical accuracy is assessed all through, right? In every writing they're going to write, whether it's a proper writing or they're just answering questions from a text. So the spelling, punctuation, grammar, sentence structure, and vocabulary, all of those things are actually looked out for by the examiner. So at this point, I'm going to be putting down my pen here for any further questions or contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Laura. Thank you so much.
You're
At
welcome.
this point, if we have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, Mr. Shine, you can ask a question.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Laura, for this very wonderful eye-opening session. Actually, it's not a question. I've asked it before. You promised you were going to show us practically how we can use IXL to boost our teaching of GCSE. Sorry, earlier I said IGCSE. Sorry about that. I meant to say GCSE. So in addition to that, I was going to ask that apart from getting curriculum and assessment questions from IXL, can we also get contents to teach the topics or concepts?
Okay, so I'm going to answer part of the question, right? And then I'll have to go open IXL to answer the first part. Now, for IXL, I didn't say that you're going to get the curriculum from IXL. The curriculum is the specification. The specification is the curriculum. What I've said IXL can do for you is there are certain topics or there are certain skills in that curriculum, right, or the specification that you can find on IXL, right? They could have a video that explains how to approach that skill, and then they now also have questions that will help your students test out that skill, Do you understand? Why I recommended IXL is because they do their teaching skill by skill. They are not just teaching writing, or they're not even when they're teaching persuasive writing, they break persuasive writing into skills, different skills. So that's why I suggested IXL, because you would see if you're trying, if your child is deficient in one particular skill, you can just go there, pick it out, and teach them. But the place where you should get your curriculum from is the exam board specification. Okay, so don't just go to IXL and think that the curriculum on IXL is what you're going to follow, because of course IXL it incorporates lots of other curricula. So to make your work easier, just use the specification and then cross-reference the skills on the specification with that on IXL. Do you understand, Mr. Shine?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Just for you to, like you promised, practically show how.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, I believe in practice.
Okay, so just give me a moment to get my IXL. So if there's any other question, yeah, you can go ahead to ask.
Okay, I can see Teacher Love. Please ask your question.
There was something I encountered some times ago from one of my students. She mentioned that I was teaching question 5 of paper 2 in that class. Can you hear me, Ms. Laura? Okay, should I just go on?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, so she said I was using the method she was taught in her school, that she prefers the method she was taught in her school. And when she used that method to answer the question, she didn't get it, because after the class I used the mark scheme. I compared our questions. When I wanted to mark the submission, I compared our question. I used the mark scheme, and out of 12, she would score 2. She would score, at times out of 40 marks, she would score like 5. So I was trying to tell her that I actually do not know the method you're talking about, but I tried to explain to her, and I tried to make her understand that I used the mark scheme. But I discovered that she was not convinced. So how do I convince such a learner, and what do you advise that I should do? Thank you, ma.
Okay, so I think I've encountered that with younger kids anyways. I'm preparing for SAT. So usually it's because they don't want, in my own case, it was that they wanted to be given one-word answers instead of thinking a proper sentence, right? So you already answered the question yourself. Show her the mark scheme. Right? Show her the mark scheme and tell her that this is the way the mark scheme says it should be done. And sometimes, I don't know, because I wouldn't want to think that maybe the teachers over there or the teachers in their school are not doing their jobs, because of course I haven't been in the classroom setting over there, so I do not know. But I think that the best way to convince her is, you want to pass this exam. This is what determines whether you've passed whether you've passed or not, and this is what it says. If it compares with what you wrote and what it's saying, it's not tallying, right? For students that age, they will not just believe you if you tell them the sky is blue. They want to see that the sky is blue. So you have to show them evidence. So show her the mark scheme and show her how you came to the conclusion that she got 2 out of 12. Okay? Show her your thought process. She would appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Do we have any more questions? I have questions, so...
Miss Debbie, I can only take one more, please. Wow. And then let me just quickly show Mr. Shine But IXL UK. So I do not currently have the subscription to IXL UK. The one I have is for IXL US, right? But this is what I mean. Now, you can look at literary devices. This is for year 11 English. This is literary devices, right, as a skill. It's broken down into identifying the narrative point of view, right? It's broken down into interpreting the meaning of an allusion from its source. These are independent skills that your learner would actually require, right? So if you're teaching literary devices, you can come here and pick certain things, and pick certain, assessments from here to test your learner's understanding before you now move into past questions. So it has broken down the skills for you, so you actually know what to test. Do you understand? Even analyzing information, you can see some of the assessment objectives that I put up. Analyzing information, analyzing the development of informational passages, analyzing the 1 and 2, tracing an argument, analyzing rhetorical strategies in historical text. All of these things, especially when it comes to, you can see it here. What text is audience purpose and tone, right? It's not per se giving you teaching resources. It is giving you assessment resources. There could be some that have videos. Let's see if this one has a video. Okay, it doesn't have a video, but you can learn with an example, right? But this is not sufficient enough for you to have your class with. Do you understand? It just gives you assessment, what's it called? Assessment opportunities. So I think that's that.
Yeah, and I also want to add quickly before you take it off. I like the fact that Miss Laura has told us that this platform helps you with assessing the child. And in assessing the child, you want to find out from the results of your assessment, you will then understand areas you should focus on with that child. And there's the analysis. Check there, you see the diagnostic, we see the analytic. So IXL.
Although these ones are paid, though, if you want diagnostic, it's paid. So
okay, but the good thing is this gives you a personalized learning experience, because the student now would have a name, a file name for themselves. The diagnostic result you've gotten is personalized to them. The analysis that will come off it and the recommendations that they will be making is based on the performance of the child on this platform. So it gives you a personalized learning experience. And once it's paid, you can have access to resources that are here also. I just wanted to add. For that particular child, for each and every child you're taking, they have a diagnostic part here.
Okay, so I can see Mr. Kingsley's hand up. I think that's going to be the last question I'll take. Because Miss Debbie, I'll take Mr. Kingsley's question, then one of Miss Debbie's question, and then we can move on. Okay, yes, Mr. Kingsley.
Okay, it's going to be very brief. You mentioned that teachers coming together to subscribe for this IXL. So does that mean any one of those subscribers can have access to this the site? And if we actually do, does it matter what subject you're teaching, or once you have access to it, you can explore any subject you want to? That's all.
It depends on okay, so the membership depends on, some people just subscribe to math and English, others subscribe to math, English, science, and some other subjects. So it depends on what you want to subscribe to. But the subscription I have of IXL, that's the IXL for US, it's math and English, and you can add students. I'm just going to confirm the limit of students that you can add. The truth is, yes, IXL is a good platform, a wonderful platform. However, you can still prepare your child without IXL. Do you get? It's a good to have. It's not a must have. So I don't think that we should, spend a lot of time on this. Like Miss Mercy said earlier, right? Yeah, it was Miss Mercy. She said you can still use it free. You can access the free you can use the free this thing, the free version, right? Then when you have a lot of money, right, and you decide that it is a necessary tool, you can now get the paid one, especially if you want to now make use of the AI embedded tools like the diagnostics and the diagnostic tool, right?
All right, thank you. Because currently, what I do is I use national curriculum as a roadmap, and then everything else I just research before I go ahead and design whatever material that I want to use. But with this now, so I need to collaborate with fellow English teachers.
All right, Mr. Kingsley.
Okay, so my question is, what advice can you give an online tutor that is just about to take a learner or just about to go into online teaching and take a student for GCSE English? What advice will you give them as a first timer? And in terms of knowing how to teach or prepare a student for the exams, what areas do you think they should start with? Because I believe it's a step-by-step approach we should use for our learner. Looking at what you said so far, there are so many aspects to English. There's the language analysis, there's the structural analysis, there's creative writing. You talked about perspective, viewpoint, and all of that. So how do you think a teacher, or how should a teacher progress? What point should they begin with, and what point should they get to?
Okay, so truth is, it might not be linear, depending on what type of learner you have. And the reason why I'm saying it might not be linear is because if I give you like a roadmap, you might bore your learner. That's a learner that already knows what you want to teach. So here's what I'm going to say instead. If you are starting off as if you're starting off teaching GCSE, this is your first GCSE class, the first thing you have to do is familiarize yourself with the exam board you're going to be teaching. In fact, if Miss Debbie reaches out to you and says, "Oh, can you take GCSE English?" and you say yes, but it's your first time, you can ask her to find out the exam board that the child is writing under, and then ask her to give you a week, if that is possible. Now, the reason why I'm saying she should give you a week, so that you don't show up to class unprepared, because if you have not familiarized yourself with something, it would show, right? So ask her to give you a week. Now, note this, that yes, I've asked you to take a week, not because it is hard or because it is difficult, but because you have to show up prepared, right? So don't think it's difficult or hard. Then the next thing you have to do is familiarize yourself with the specification. Familiarize yourself with the past questions. Look at how do the questions come, right? There's a mark scheme. Familiarize yourself with the mark scheme. Then your first class can be, depending, AQA. Usually my first class is for AQA. It's usually literary devices, language devices, and structural devices. I pair that with writing pure paragraphs, right? These two things, these are usually my starting points, because they will definitely see these things in their exam. They will definitely analyze language and structure. So I make sure that they are familiar with all the language devices and structural devices. Then I teach them how to present their points using pure paragraphs. I think that's as good as any place to start.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm happy you were able to at least give us an idea or a framework of how to go about it. Most times, teachers will just take out past questions and start solving with their learners. And whether or not the learner has fully gotten a good foundation of some of these aspects of English, we're not aware of it. But you giving us this framework is helping us to understand that learning English should be done in precision, because we are building a foundation. And at the end of the day, if we don't do it the right way, or follow the right step, the learner will struggle when they get up there. So I want to appreciate you for the many things you've said tonight. I'm sure a lot of us here have gained knowledge. Please, if you're still here with us, if you're able to make it to this point, congratulations. But I would really love to know, hope we got value. We got value for our time. Please appreciate our speaker tonight. You can use the comment section, you can unmute. And if you have any more questions, please share them on the community's group page. We may not be able to attend to them here, but on the group page, we should be able to address most of them. Miss Laura has already promised to give us a framework. We'll be receiving it and sending it to the group. So if you like to be part of the group, the community, or if you're here and you do not have the link to join the group page, I would send it, or let me just, because I can't get my hands on it right. So I'll just put my contact here. You send me a message, I'll add you to the community. We'll definitely, oh, okay, someone has sent it. Thank you so much, Miss Messi. So if you're here, you want to get the video recording of previous meetings, please join the community. If you'd like to be part of the meeting we have tomorrow with Miss Messi, please join the community. And if you have any more questions, you want to receive the resource that Miss Laura has. She says she's going to send us a creative writing framework, because a lot of our learners, they can't think on the spot. When it's exam, when it's timed, they can't think under pressure. You want to give them a framework on how to write spontaneously and get their arts and their thoughts together, even in the exam hall. Whether any random topic at all, they stumble on in the exam, you want them to be able to write within the timed a time condition. So we will be getting the creative writing framework from her and sending it to the community's page. Thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. I wish you all a wonderful good night rest. Enjoy your evening.